Good morning. It's 8 a.m. local time here in Hanoi and you're watching VTV News live with the latest updates about Vietnam. National Assembly Chairwoman Nguyễn Thị Kim Ngân on Wednesday chaired the second plenary session between the National Steering Committee and the Organizing Committee of the 41st General Assembly of the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, or IPA 41. She is also the chair of IPA 41.
After having successfully organized a number of activities within the framework of IPA during the first plenary session, the second plenary session between the National Steering Committee and the Organizing Committee of the 41st General Assembly of the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, or IPA 41, discussed solutions on the agenda, including the admission of parliamentary observers and the application of Vietnam's initiatives on the IPA General Assembly. National Assembly Chairwoman Nguyễn Thị Kim Ngân said that the Assembly will be held online from September 8th to 10th in Hanoi, while also asking for the completion of the guest list with priority given to the ambassadors to ASEAN countries, member countries and observers. She also emphasized the importance of preparations for the event, from technological structure to logistics and communications.
We need to emphasize the content and pay attention to sensitive topics to achieve consensus between member countries as well as observers. Efforts should be made to follow the results of the 36th ASEAN Summit, such as the meeting mechanism between APA and ASEAN. These issues need to be reflected in the meeting resolution. In addition, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Party Central Committee's Commission for External Relations must closely coordinate.
National Assembly Chairwoman Nguyễn Thị Kim Ngân also said that plans should be carefully prepared so that information can be spread both domestically and internationally, especially information on the initiatives of Vietnam's National Assembly on renewing IPA's activities, such as the IPA Young Parliamentarians meeting, which was first integrated into the IPA General Assembly by Vietnam.
Vietnam is expected to continue growing its share of global exports despite the decline amid the resurgence of the COVID-19 pandemic after 3 months of no local transmission. The EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, or EVFTA, which took effect on the 1st of August, will reduce duty to 0% on 71% of goods, rising to 99% in 7 years. When the EVFTA took effect, the two sides had to affirm their commitment to promoting sustainable development and business for the benefit of present and future generations. Thanks to the agreement, Vietnam will have a chance to become the EU's most important trade partner among all ASEAN members. Up to this point, Vietnam has ratified 7 out of the 8 fundamental conventions of the International Labour Organization, or ILO, as well as adapted its legal framework to better adhere to ILO conventions in its revised Labour Code 2019. This has had a positive influence on businesses and improved the treatment of employees.
These are the company's reports on the number of products made on a working day. Since the business has published its payment rate, each person can now calculate their daily income.
I can earn an average amount of $13.
Inside the workshop, the temperature is always kept at below 29 degrees Celsius, thanks to this hydro-cooling system. Hot benches have also been replaced with high-low seating with backrests. These are some of the improvements this business has made to help employees feel more comfortable at work.
We are aware that we have to comply with international standards in ensuring the well-being of our workers, especially during this tough period, because clients are also more demanding now.
Promoting work environments that meet ILO standards will be an advantage for Vietnamese businesses.
Businesses need to put more effort into improving management, applying technology, and improving worker skills.
So we really believe that labor law compliance and social dialogue help competitiveness. And this European-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement provides the framework for that. And it also shows that the government is really supporting that.
With a healthy work environment being a major part of the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, strictly complying with the international standards will be essential for Vietnamese businesses to take part in the EU market.
Forbes Vietnam recently announced Vietnam's 50 leading brands for 2020. Their estimated worth is $12.6 billion, 22% more than last year's list. Among the top 10 brands are familiar names like Military Telecom Corporation or Viettel, Vietnam Dairy Products Joint Stock Company or Vinamilk, Vietnam Post and Telecommunication Groups VNPT, and Saigon Beer Alcohol Beverage Joint Stock Corporation or Sabeco. The top 10 brands account for 30% of the total value of the list. Topping the list this year is Viettel with a brand value of more than $2.9 billion, followed by Vinamilk with a brand value of more than $2.4 billion. This year's top 50 brands come from food and beverage, financial services, real estate, technology, raw materials, and retail. Though the average consumer price index or CPI in the past 7 months was higher than the same period last year, 2020's inflation rate is forecast to be lower than 4%, achieving National Assembly's target. This is thanks to Vietnam's stable macroeconomic outlook and the government's drastic measures to control inflation.
The reason Vietnam's CPI in the past 7 months has increased to 4.07% is mainly due to the strong increase in the price of gasoline and pork. Most notably, the increasing demand for electricity and water in July due to hot weather has pulled the figure up about 0.4% higher compared to the previous month's index. However, experts believe that the price increase in gasoline is only technical, while the price of pork has reached its peak, so an abnormal increase is highly unlikely.
As the price of pork could not go higher and the demand for crude oil is relatively weak globally, this year's inflation rate can be kept below 4%.
The inflation rate depends largely on an economy's purchasing power and exchange rate. If purchasing power increases, products will be in shortage and prices will increase. Meanwhile, the depreciation of domestic currency will also make imported goods more expensive and cause inflation.
The downward trend of people's income along with COVID-19 has made people more careful with their spending, so an increase in the inflation rate is unlikely this year. Our exchange rate continues to be stable thanks to a trade surplus and the disbursement of foreign investment capital and domestic production. The decline in domestic production also slowed down import growth, so foreign currency is not likely to cause inflation.
Some factors that might affect the control of the inflation rate in the final months of the year include the prices of public services and equipment for the new school year, coupled with the complex development of the pandemic. However, with the government's direction, the inflation rate is forecast to only reach 3.95% in the worst-case scenario.
The price of gasoline should be adjusted in accordance with the world's price. The Price Stabilization Fund should be utilized to minimize the impact of inflation control. Electricity prices should not be adjusted in 2020. The price of several public service products should not be regulated to control inflation. And inspection of medical equipment should be strengthened to ensure the prevention of COVID-19.
In order to control inflation as well as promote the production of essential commodities, authorities need to strengthen control and stabilize the market. The supply of food products must be protected at all costs, and initiatives should be made to actively control the domestic supply of pork.
The official implementation of the EVFTA will bring about direct benefits but also put a lot of pressure on the country's logistic industry, which suffers from high cost and inadequate infrastructure. To improve this, many domestic logistic enterprises have recently focused on developing technology and digitalizing their process to reduce costs, thereby improving the competitiveness of Vietnamese goods in the international arena.
This is an empty container optimization model. After transporting goods to major industrial parks, instead of returning to the port immediately without anything inside, the containers will continue to move goods from other export businesses before returning to the port. Thus, the transport process will save on 2 empty container runs, reducing costs for exporters and importers by roughly $50 to $60 for each container. Carriers will be able to reduce their logistic costs by roughly a third.
The current method we are using is highly appreciated by our major customers. We save up to 50% of transportation costs. After more than a year of implementation, our customer base had increased by more than 30%.
In addition to reusing empty containers and enhancing exchanges between logistic stages, digitalizing and minimizing manual processes have also been effective solutions for reducing wastefulness in logistics.
We are using a comprehensive solution that is considered the best in the world. With this software, all departments, including sales, documentation, and accounting, can work smoothly and effectively with the automatic reporting function, thereby making suitable decisions and strategies for all situations.
According to experts, the EVFTA will open up businesses and provide opportunities for European logistic investors and service providers to enter Vietnam. As a result, Vietnamese logistic enterprises will face more intense competition.
The EVFTA is now in effect. However, as they use advanced technology in the European market, if we don't quickly adapt to digital transformation, we won't be able to keep up. In order to meet the agreement's requirements for import and export activities, we must develop digital technology rapidly.
According to experts, business owners need to change their mindsets immediately and apply more modern technology to analyze data and make breakthrough decisions to improve their competitiveness and seize the opportunities offered by free trade agreements.
Coming up next, Cuba sends antiviral drug to aid Vietnam's fight against COVID-19. And donors present 500 respirators to support Vietnam's fight against COVID-19. Welcome back to VTV News. A teleconference between senior officials of ASEAN and the US was held Wednesday morning to promote coordination between the two sides in fighting COVID-19 pandemic and maintaining regional security. Vietnamese Deputy Foreign Minister Nguyễn Quốc Dũng, head of the ASEAN Senior Officials Meeting in Vietnam, expressed his appreciation for the US support in the fight against COVID-19, including the US assistance worth $87 million for ASEAN public health sector. ASEAN member nations and the US agreed that they would give priority to the prevention of a new wave of COVID-19 while maintaining close cooperation in business activities and job opportunities. The two sides also discussed cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, the Korean Peninsula, and maritime issues. The US-ASEAN relationship was elevated to a strategic partnership in 2015, and the US is now the third largest trading partner and investors of ASEAN. Cuba presented 1,000 capsules of the antiviral drug interferon alpha-2b to Vietnam on Wednesday to assist the country in its fight against COVID-19. This is the European standard drug that will stimulate the production of antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2 virus when it enters the body. The drugs were immediately sent to Da Nang and Quảng Nam to help combat the pandemic. A delegation of Cuban health experts was also sent to Vietnam to help the Vietnamese medical community fight the disease. The experts will undergo a strict 2-week quarantine before joining Vietnamese doctors. On Wednesday, 43 new cases of COVID-19 were announced in Vietnam, the second largest single-day increase in cases since January. The new coronavirus patients recorded Wednesday morning were registered in the central province of Quảng Nam and traced back to the neighboring province of Da Nang, the country's current outbreak epicenter. Among the new cases, 34 are in Da Nang, 4 in Lạng Sơn province, 2 in Bắc Giang, and 1 imported case that was quarantined upon arrival. The country has announced 381 recoveries and 8 virus-related deaths that are all pre-existing conditions. Latest update from the Ministry of Health. This morning, Vietnam recorded 4 new COVID-19 cases, raising the country's total to 717. Among them, 3 are in Quảng Nam and 1 in Hanoi. The construction of a second field hospital in Da Nang has been completed after 5 days of urgent construction. The Tiên Sơn Sports Center Field Hospital is expected to begin treating COVID-19 patients within 3 days, according to Da Nang officials.
As the number of COVID-19 cases continue to rise, Da Nang has decided to convert Tiên Sơn Sports Center into a field hospital. The design and construction of the hospital was finished in just 5 days, along with the installation of important items such as beds, electricity, and the sewage system. The interior was also disinfected on Wednesday and is ready for handover.
We assign people from the Ministry of Health to monitor the construction of the field hospital to ensure regulatory compliance.
Though the first field hospital in Hoa Vang district is still capable of receiving patients, Da Nang took the initiative to construct a second one. According to the leaders of Da Nang, the 2 field hospitals will relieve some of the pressure on Da Nang Hospital, which is considered the city's biggest outbreak. The Tiên Sơn Sports Center Field Hospital will begin operations on August 8th.
Hoa Vang Field Hospital has finished construction and is ready to treat cases with kidney failure. We are currently moving those patients. We have 776 beds here.
Pandemic prevention work is being swiftly conducted in Da Nang. Currently, the health sector is working on cleaning up Da Nang Hospital and Da Nang Hospital C. The city is also ramping up its community testing capacity to 10,000 people a day. With the construction of the 2 field hospitals, the pressure on Da Nang's hospital system will be relieved.
The Vietnam Fatherland Front, or VFF, on the 5th of August received 500 made-in-Vietnam MV20 respirators worth 120 billion Vietnamese dong, or $5.21 million, and cash worth 11.7 billion Vietnamese dong from donors for the fight against COVID-19. At the handover ceremony, President of the VFF Central Committee Trần Thanh Mẫn spoke highly of the support provided in recent times, adding that it demonstrated the patriotism and social responsibility of organizations and individuals at home and abroad in the fight against the pandemic. Donations in excess of 2.1 trillion Vietnamese dong in cash and kind have been offered to the VFF and its affiliates nationwide. Due to rains brought by Storm Sinlaku in Vietnam, thousands of hectares of crops have been saved after months of suffering prolonged drought. Our reporters were in Nghệ An province to find out more.
Over 1 hectare of industrial tea farm of Ladingho's family in Thanh Thủy Commune, Thanh Truong district has suffered losses of up to 70% due to more than 2 months of continuous hot weather. But thanks to the recent rains, some areas have been restored.
Most of my tea crops are dead. Now I only hope the specialized agencies can help me recover them.
For Trần Sĩ Thuyết, 2 hectares of crops, which consist of 1 hectare of tea and 1 hectare of fruit trees. Even though they were irrigated frequently during the 2 months of hot weather, the trees are still growing poorly compared to the previous years. After the last rain, he has been focused on taking care of them to ensure they grow well.
Despite receiving irrigation, the crops were still affected. These rains has helped them grow well again. Now our family is supplying fertilizers to the crops.
Roughly 20,000 hectares of crops in Nghệ An province have died and withered due to the lack of rain. In many rice farms, the damage has almost been irreversible. Thanks to the recent rains, farmers are focusing on taking care of their crops.
Thanks to the recent rains, my family can now apply nitrogenous fertilizers to the land and get rid of weeds so that the rice can grow.
According to the forecasts from specialized agencies, after this rain, there will be one more prolonged heat wave. As a result, taking care of crops in accordance with complicated weather developments will help farmers minimize their losses.
The annual flooding season has started in the Mekong Delta after months of drought and saline intrusion. However, water levels in rivers upstream remain low. The highest levels recently recorded for Tien River in An Giang and Đồng Tháp provinces are both lower than the average level of previous years. More than ever, farmers in the region are hoping for a good flooding season so they can get sealed and store fresh water.
These are the farms that grow 2 crops of rice in Thượng Thời Hậu A Order Commune, Đồng Tháp province. Farmers have been harvesting their rice crops to open flood drains and collect silt. But at the moment, the water levels in the field canals are still 40 to 50 centimeters lower than the field surface.
I really hope that the flood will come soon so that the soil can get silt and grow new crops.
Every year, the upstream area of Đồng Tháp province usually receives floods early from the Mekong River. In the past, by the 5th of the lunar month, water would already flood the fields. But now it's close to the 6th of the lunar month and the water has yet to reach the river.
By the 5th of the 5th lunar month, the water rises considerably, but this year I haven't seen anything.
With such low water levels, many families have been left to tend to prepare for their stream fishing equipment.
I have waited so long for the water this year. There hasn't been any, so I have just been preparing and can't do anything else.
This is how people upstream of the Mekong Delta have been maintaining their optimism. They hope that if the floods come, there will be silt and seafood so people can earn an income.
Floods in the Mekong Delta this year are only forecast to reach alert level 1 or 2. However, we are especially concerned about a normal flooding. If heavy rains extend to the northern China region, the entire Lantang River basin in China, and upstream from the Mekong River area in Vietnam will experience abnormal flood.